मैं जहाँ रहूँ जहाँ में याद रहे तू, ए वतन मेरे वतन, ए वतन मेरे वतन, तू ही मेरी मंजिल है पहचान तुझी से, तू ही मेरी मंजिल है पहचान तुझी से, पहुँचूँ मैं जहाँ भी मेरी बुनियाद रहे तू, ए वतन मेरे वतन, ए वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, मैं जहाँ रहूँ जहाँ में याद रहे तू, ए वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू। तुझ पे कोई गम की आँच आने नहीं दूँ, तुझ पे कोई गम की आँच आने नहीं दूँ, कुर्बान मेरी जान तुझ पे शाद रहे तू, है वतन मेरे वतन, है वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, मैं जहाँ रहूँ जहाँ भी याद रहे तू, है वतन वतन मेरे आबाद रहे तू, ए वतन मेरे वतन, ए वतन मेरे वतन.
So, thank you so much for your kind attention.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So, let's begin the session. The meaning of this song is, let me give a brief translation of this song. Oh, my country, may you live long. Wherever I am, may you always be there in my memory. You are my destination. My identity is from you only. Wherever I reach, may you remain my foundation. I would not be there. Even the smallest ember of sorrow on you, may you always remain joyful. Namaste, everyone. I, Randhir Gautam, on behalf of School of Humanities and Social Sciences of Raffles University, I welcome you. I also welcome you on behalf of Swadhyaya Sahachkara, Circle for Creative Co-Learning, Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, Puducherry and Chennai. It's an honor and privilege to have available with us our distinguished speaker, Dr. Marharyta, Fabrykant, a leading research fellow at HSC University, Russia, and also associate professor at Belarusian State University. Dr. Marharyta, welcome. A pleasure to have you here. I extend my warm welcome to our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Raffles University, Chief Patron, Honorable Justice Dr. Meena Vigombar, former Chief Justice of Rajasthan High Court, Professor Ananta Giri, Professor at Madras Institute of Development Studies, and Honorary Executive of Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, and all respected participants, viewers, listeners, thank you so much for joining. Let me give a brief introduction to our honorable speaker. Dr. Marharyta Fabrykant is a senior research fellow at National State University, the Higher State of Economics, and an associate professor at Belarusian State University. She holds 2 PhD, one in sociology, another one in social psychology. She conducts comparative research on national identities and national history narratives with a focus on the bottom of demand for an perception of national identity politics. She has taught courses on Belarusian national identity in comparative perspective as an emeritus visiting lecturer at University of Tartu and Jutis Lansing University. She has authored numerous publications, including articles published in Europe, Asian Studies, Nationalities, papers, and Salvic reviews. Thank you so much. And today she will be talking on the topic national pride in cross-cultural perspective, factors, regions, and stories. Let me also give a brief introduction to our Swadhyaya Sahachkara. Swadhyaya Sahachkara, co-learning circle of self and mutual studies, is an initiative of studying and learning together self, culture, societies, and the world. Friends associated with this are eager to walk and mediate with new horizons of thinking and new movements of social and cultural change at work in our contemporary world. We study seekers such as Sri Aurobindo, Mahatma Gandhi, Chittaranjan Das, a seeker and creative thinker from Odisha, and many others around the world. We also present our own writings and reflect upon our creativity together. We also invite seekers from different walk of life, fields of life to share us with their visions, lives, sadhana, and struggles for creating a world of beauty, dignity, and dialogue. We meet every Sunday or sometimes on Wednesday. Now we are nurturing this dialogue in collaboration with School of Humanities and Social Science of Raffles University. Now, I would like to invite Professor Anant Kumar Giri sir to kindly moderate the session. Now I turn the mic to Professor Anant Kumar Giri.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Randhir. Your smile and enthusiasm is infectious. And a very warm welcome to Dr. Uh, Mar- Marharyta Fabrykant. And it is just a joy to have you and listen to here. The theme that Dr. Fabrykant is sharing with us on the theme of national pride in cross-cultural perspective is a very important concern. And I just wish to share some thoughts in the beginning. The whole question of nationalism as it emerged in the modern world is a very uh, difficult journey because the birth of the nation state in the modern world has been accompanied by, as the great sociologist Anthony Giddens, the title of his book Nation State and Violence suggests, that it has been accompanied by varieties of violence, including what can be called as violence of homogenization and linguistic homogenization also. Now, the theme of national pride then is not innocent from the reality and and history of violence. So pride and prejudice, as the theme of the novel suggests, they go together. But we can also have alternative realization of national pride in the sense of a sense of glory or a sense of achievement, where achieving our nation is not always predicated upon antagonism against other nations. And here, as in one of her papers, Dr. Fabrykant makes a distinction between mass perception of a country's achievement and elitist perception, for example. There is a distinction between them. This empirical finding brings us to the theoretical issue of elite versus mass in imagining the nation. In the Indian context also, when Indian freedom struggle began, for example, Indian National Congress, which started at 1885, and in India, the birth of nationalism has been initiated by the freedom movement. But in the beginning, Indian National Congress was a very elitistic group, very elitistic. And it is Sri Aurobindo, for example, who really challenged it, and with the Swadeshi movement in Bengal, and 10 years after Gandhi, both Sri Aurobindo and Gandhi They challenged the very small elitistic closure of nationalism and brought it to the masses. With that also, the new realization of Indian nation began as people from all over the country joined the national movement. Nation becomes a rainbow. As in India also, we do not have a monolithic conception of nationalism. Therefore, the whole question of nation is always related to one and the many everywhere. Even a monolithic production of nationalism, whether it is Russia, France, even Britain, USA, it always has a reality of multiple nations, multiple languages, dialects, food, and so on and so forth. The song that we listen, Ei Deso Ei Mati in Odia, this country and this soil. So nationalism is not just an artifact, it is not just a machinery. Sri Aurobindo challenged us to realize nation as a living mother. And that living mother emerges from a sense of living soil. Even the song that we heard in Hindi or Urdu, A Batan. Now, Batan is not just Batan, but also Batan has a multiple connotation. It is a sense of the land, A Batan. And also the word also brings us very close acoustically to the wind and the sound, and it is not just an impersonal concept of the nation. So therefore nation, we have to realize nation as it relates to the soil, the soul, nature, cosmic, and the divine. So nation therefore is related to multiple nations, and that nation also has a transnational dimension. Now from the very birth of nation states have been part of an interacting system. And in fact, even in the pre-modern world, countries were in communication. So therefore, there is always a transnational dimension to nation. And when we are exploring national pride and how national pride interacts with the transnational dimension and of course transcultural dimension. Speaking about stories also, another theme in Dr. Fabrykant's presentation, of course, we are you have heard about works like Homi Bhabha's Nations and Narrations, and therefore the stories. What kind of stories we tell? I was reading Dr. Fabrykant's review of the book on nationalist education in Russia. So, what kind of stories are being told? And sometimes these stories can be much more inclusive or it can be much more exclusive. But the theme of the story also invites us to realize the story dimension of the human conditions, that we are all narrators, we are narrative beings, as Paul Ricoeur, the great philosopher, would tell us. And that sense of stories, the stories that we tell to ourselves, to our children, to each other, and the world, these stories are not frozen in stones. So we can have an alternative imagination of national pride where we tell stories of mutual achievement as well as our own achievement. So with this initial submission, so it is a joy for me and us to welcome Dr. Marharyta Fabrykant and to kindly make your presentation. And you may kindly enrich us for the next 35 to 40 minutes. And we are grateful to you for this. Looking forward.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. I'm happy to be here, albeit virtually. I'm truly, absolutely amazed at the sheer number of those wishing to listen to a talk on national pride on Sunday. And really quite nice surprise. And another nice surprise is this music I never learned to sing, but I appreciate it all the more. And very topical song. Thanks for the translation about an individual's relation to one's country. And the important thing it highlights, and one of the main takeaways from my presentation, is that the relations of individuals to their countries are quite complex. And this umbrella term national identity, which is the main subject of my research and my whole research career, endlessly fascinating subjects. Yes, national identity is a lot of things. Obviously, it is much more than, well, a mere adherence. It's not a line in your passport and nothing more. But here the question arises is what exactly it is in addition to this. And it's very easy to see that it's all the bunch of meanings that a person can assign, deduce from this belonging. And yeah, it can be a sense of belonging, or the emotions related to the fact of belonging to a nation. It can be something cognitive, and like what does it mean for me? It can be related to, well, life decisions, like what should I do for my country, or what my country should do for me and people like myself, or maybe for people who are not at all like myself, for different people. And yeah, what's about other countries? Then how should the world of nations be organized? And recently, all these issues came to the surface once again, because there has been this revival of nationalisms worldwide in quite a huge number of very different countries, different in their location, in their population size, in their economy, or in the basic values, like everything. There's been this renaissance, the resurgence of nationalism, and then on top of that, we had the pandemic. Unfortunately, we still have the pandemic. And during the pandemic, when even within the European Union, the countries started closing their borders and relying on the allegedly old-fashioned, these national commitments and nation-state structures, institutions. Right now there is a lot of talk as to nations and nationalism once again, instead of disappearing, they're here to stay. And exactly in such times when nations are perceived as a solid fact, a reality that's here to stay, not something to be sustained or to be well, contested, but something objective. That's where the question arises as to how should we treat the relative nations? How should we position ourselves vis-a-vis primarily our own nations and our own nation states? And that's where the whole issue of national pride becomes of particular importance. Because, well, right now there is a debate in nations and nationalism studies as to whether national pride is a part of national identity or a distinct from national identity or a separate phenomenon. And there is another umbrella term, the so-called national sentiment. And national pride is something that can be treated as an emotion, like when your national team wins in some competition, or when some prominent scholar from your country gets some huge internationally recognized awards, or, well, you may continue. It's something that you feel, you feel this very, well, inspiring and pleasant emotion of national pride. But usually this issue is somewhere in the background. Unfortunately, it's not every day that we experience such major national success. Obviously, it cannot be the case. There are not so many competitions. And also, obviously, when during a survey, a respondent is asked, like, how proud are you of being well, a Rotarian? Yeah, you can substitute the name of any country. Obviously, then it's highly unlikely that this respondent experiences a strong emotion. Yeah, you do not get emotional simply because you're invited to take part in a survey. Well, a survey is a survey; it's nothing quite out of the ordinary. So instead, yeah, it's something cognitive. Yeah, and it's not this sentiment. It's more like evaluation. Like, yeah, do I feel? Do I think am I that proud of my country? And just how exactly? And the important thing about national pride, unlike many other national identity related phenomena, is that it is always invariably oriented not just towards well, the competitors, but to a large extent towards the foreigners, because when you evaluate just how proud are you of your country, well, the question is whether it comes automatically or whether it is a more step-by-step process. Yeah, where we ask respondents, okay, so how proud are you of your country and of belonging to a country? What happens? Does the respondent react automatically because the respondent is somehow taught to react in a certain way to such questions? Or does the respondent try to think like, okay, so what is there in my country is to be proud of, and is there enough for fuel here for national pride? So that is the question I'm aimed at answering in a research that, well, yeah, first it was my PhD thesis that I defended at the High School of Economics, and well, subsequently it was just growing into various directions. Apparently there is more about national pride that meets the eye, and the more I work on the subject, the more questions pop up. And the initial question here, what I was wondering about is to what extent people estimate their level of national pride based on the features of the country that they evaluate, considering that well, people don't necessarily have all the necessary information that's needed. Okay, we as researchers know much more about the state of research in well, in any given country than non-researchers do. But even we know much more about the state of research in our areas than, say, in okay, some sciences, physics, and some remote fields. And we have probably a rather flawed idea about the things they are in other areas that are not related to our field of study and our area of expertise. So if people do evaluate their countries and base national pride upon that, the question is how accurate it is. And if they don't, well, the question is it totally unrelated to the objective facts? And is it just something that can be created, yeah, like fabricated any way you like? There are some theories here of nations and nationalism that do not just claim that nations are social constructs. Okay, nearly everything we study is, but it doesn't mean that it's not real. It's as real as it can be. But some researchers go well beyond it, and what they claim is that essentially the elites of any country can, if they put enough effort and enough skill into it, they can manufacture any kind of national identity they like. And there is this widespread opinion that it's easier to manufacture national sentiment than other kinds of sentiments. Playing the national card for some scholars seems to be quite a reliable source of, say, gaining support for, well, some ideas that are more contested, potentially at least. So what did I do to check it? I used a very high quality data as BASE highly recommended. The International Social Survey Program. It's an international program of social surveys conducted in a variety of countries and on the variety of topics. And what distinguishes the ISSP from similar projects is that it conducts topical research, meaning that you get on any given topic, you get a lot of items, and they have a thematic series of surveys on national identity, and it is by far the most comprehensive survey data sets on the subject, so highly recommended, especially as it's on open access. And there's been already 3 weeks of the ISSP national identity, and they're planning another in 2 years, combined with ISSP citizenship, so we'll see the dynamics. And they have as many as 11 items on national pride. So they have this general question, like how proud are you of being Russian? Just substitute here their name for any country. And also they have a set of 10 items that invite respondents to estimate their level of pride in a country's achievements in various spheres. And there are as many as 10 spheres. Yes, some of them are more related to everyday life. Yeah, the economy, social security system, fairness and equality for all groups in society, democracy. Some of them, on the contrary, are more related to, well, not everyday life, but to achievements that matter for image, for prestige, for the country's soft power, and they may have some effect on everyday life, but it's not at all obvious. And also, in these spheres, the input that is more obvious is not or like a small inputs from every citizen, but it's something that's done primarily by specific persons, like achievements in arts and culture, art and literature, achievements in sports, achievements in science and technology. And also there are some points that are particularly debated nowadays, like pride in the country's history, whatever is meant by history. I'll turn to the stories issue later. So what I did is I ran a series of multi-level order logistic regressions. I'd hate to bother you with technical details. The results were as following. Apparently, their kind of national pride that is unrelated to any specific context, yeah, like general pride, how proud are you, and so on. And these are kinds of prides based on specific achievements are not just different, they in some ways are exactly the opposites. The main finding from my research was that many of those items measuring pride and specific achievements, especially these achievements that come closer to everyday life, they are positively related to some objective measures of a country's actual performance, and especially well to their country's performance in the economy. So basically, yeah, the more affluent country is, the higher its pride in its economy, yeah, social security system, yeah, and some less obvious spheres. For example, a country's political influence in the world, surprisingly, is in this way is closer to pride in the economy and social security than to pride in, say, the armed forces or history, for whatever reason. So apparently it's more about pragmatics, less about soft power. Maybe people believe that the country's political influence in the world is a very direct factor for developing the country's economy and well-being. And okay, there are quite strong reasons to believe it's the case. So far so good, quite logical. Far from being well randomly rational, people have quite a good idea as to whether the country stands vis-a-vis other countries, yeah, in terms of the economy. Of course, I didn't claim that people remember the country's GDP per se up to, well, their 4 digits, but in general, yes, apparently people have a fairly accurate idea of their country's relative success in this regard. Another thing is that, yes, people do evaluate it, but they do so when explicitly prompted to do so. Yes, when asked to evaluate the pride in the country's achievements, they do consider the objective realities. So it's not that you can manipulate with national pride any way you can. No, it's very grounded in the facts. But as far as the general national pride is concerned, here the results were, well, quite astonishing. Okay, if it were also based in objective reality, well, the relation to their country's objective achievements would be positive. On the other hand, if there's people who believe you can manipulate national pride any way you like, if it were right, then there would be no relation. But what I found instead is that there was a relation, quite significant, fairly strong, and surprise, surprise, this relation was in fact negative. So apparently, the relation of this general national pride, as opposed to pride in the country's achievements, is exactly the other way around. The more affluent, the more economically successful a country is, the lower the national pride of the majority of its population, holding all the conditions equal. Apparently, it's not just well, random and manipulated. There is, well, some kind of logic, but this logic is not this logic of information processing. Yeah, and there can be 2 well major explanations to this issue. One explanation that's been favored by some political scientists is that, okay, well, things are doing not so well. Yeah, the elites need to need to provide either some distraction, yeah, or they need to provide some kind of explanation. Well, at any rate, they need to keep people happy. So basically, their idea is that in the countries where, the objective state of affairs is leaving much to be desired, so to say, elites are the elites have a particularly strong incentive here to stimulate national pride. But another explanation can be that, well, basically it's much more natural, much more pleasant for people themselves here to feel reasonably high rather than low national pride. Because if you live in a country and you're proud of this country, well, everything's fine, and it's okay, and you can boost your self-esteem by referring to this collective high self-esteem. But if you live in a country and you don't believe this country is something to be hugely proud of, it means that, in a nutshell, there is a kind of cognitive dissonance here, and you really need to do something about it, at the very least in the mental sphere, and probably even to do something in the outer sphere. So the self-serving bias may be the case, and it may be the case of hyper compensation. Yeah, like it's in the countries where the situation is not so good. Where there is a need to experience, to deny it, yeah, quite emphatic. And yet another explanation may be that, paradoxically, yeah, it's the countries where the things are doing not so well, the countries that need some kind of collective enthusiasm, yeah, to believe that things can be much better to work for, yeah, to ask what I can do for my country, and to work to make some improvements. So paradoxically, yeah, apparently to believe that you can make your country better, you need to believe it's something to be proud of as it is. So what I found out is that there are some countries where the difference between this general national pride, which are called normative because it's largely, a social norm, that's negatively related to a country's objective performance, and the grounded national pride, an aggregate factor combining these items of pride and specific achievements. There are countries with quite a huge difference in scores. Okay, in most countries, this general national pride is rather higher than national pride in specific achievements, but in some countries the difference is quite high. And also what I found out is that there are some countries where national pride in specific achievements is much lower than in other countries with compatible GDP per se. So these countries and these countries' populations are more pessimistic than is justified by the objective state of affairs. And this is, as you might have guessed, they are the Central European countries, Central and Eastern Europe, the post-socialist countries. And I believe it's to a large extent because, these countries are used to comparing themselves with the world's top countries, not with their immediate neighbors, and just with the top, especially the new members of the European Union, that as is nowadays widely debated in some literature, yet that we're supposed to overtake the Western European countries in 10 or 15 years, but still there is this gap. So the expectations matter a great deal. And that's where the stories come in. Even for these grounded dimensions of national pride. It's not just mere reflection of the state of affairs in a country. It's about making sense of the country's past, present, and future. And yeah, we all have these kinds of stories. Some of these stories may be rather imprecise. And here, the methodological question is where we should look for these stories. And much of my research in this regard on the nation in narration has been so far dedicated to textbooks. And just to sum up.
Dr. Fabrykant. So I have a request that I have a request. Some of our friends are a place called Odisha, and they need a little bit of translation of your talk in English into Odia. So I request, I'll make a very brief translation of what you have spoken for 5 minutes or so, and then we will continue the conversation. Yeah. So, and I am grateful to all friends, non-Odia friends, for your generosity. So, आमर भाई भौणी माने बंधुगण आमर स्वाध्याय सहचक्र आज ये आलोचना टी नेशनल प्राइड उपरे गोटे जातीय गर्व एवं आमर एठी बंधु डॉक्टर फैब्रिकेंट भारी महत्वपूर्ण कथा मान कहउचंती जोटा कि गवेषणा प्रसूत से गवेषणाटा उभय एम्पिरिकल रिसर्च प्रकृत में आमर भूमि रे कौन घटुची ता संगे एक तत्वगत गवेषणा गोटे थियोरेटिकल रिसर्च से कहउचंती जे आमर जो देश को नहीं जो आमर गर्व सेटा किछि गोटे वास्तवता ऊपर सेटा पर्यवेसित जेमती आम देशर अर्थनीति केमती डॉक्टर फैब्रिकेंट से मस्कोर गोटे यूनिवर्सिटी रे काम करती रशिया रे तापर तांको घरटा होची बेलारूस रे तांकर रिसर्चटा होची रशिया एवं से रशिया पाख पाख सेंट्रल यूरोप रे देश मानक रे से कहउचंती फॉर एग्जांपल तुमरो देश रे तुमे ए जो 11 टी आइटम ऊपर से रिसर्च करचंती तुमरो अर्थनीति केमिति तुम देशर सोशल सिक्यूरिटी सिस्टम केमिति एवं आर्ट एंड कल्चर केमिति से कहउचंती जते बेले तांको प्रश्न करा जाउची गोटे प्रश्न खाता नै कि जते बेले लोक मान को भेटा जाउची प्रश्न कला बेले मनकर तुम देश को नै तुमरो गर्व केमिति बेले बेले लोक मान भारी इमोशनल हेई परंती भारी आवेग प्रवण हेई परंती खाली पचारिला बेलू जोटा कि गोटे खाली तथ्यगत प्रश्न पचारा बेलू सेमती भारी आवेग हो पड़ती से जना पड़ुची जो जातीय गर्वर जो कथा सेटा खाली तथ्यगत कथा नुहे ता संगे गोटे आवेग रही इमोशंस रही सहित जे आउ गोटे बड़ फाइंडिंग होची जे आमर नेशनल प्राइड को आम जो अध्ययन करवा सेटा को मैनिपुलेट करी हबनी से भारी सुंदर गवेषणाटी कहते गोटे देशर अर्थनीति भारी ये हो पारे माने भारी स्वच्छल हो पारे किंतु से देशर एलिट लोक माने बड़ बड़िया लोक माने से जी गर्व करती अधिकांश साधारण लोक मानकर तांको भितरे से गर्व न थाए कारण कौन कहीं हुए तो साधारण लोक माने से एक माने समृद्धशील अर्थनीति सेमानकर बेसी किसी लाभ पाती तेणु से कौन पाई गर्व करेंगे एवं आउ गोटे कथा से कहते आमर डॉक्टर फैब्रिकेंट ଏବଂ ଏଲିଟ୍ସ ମାନଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ବଡ଼ ବଡ଼ିଆ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ବା ଆମ୍ବାନୀ ଆଦାନୀ ବା ଏଇ 1% ଲୋକ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ ଅଛନ୍ତି ସେମାନଙ୍କର ଗୋଟେ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରଙ୍ଗ ଇନସେଣ୍ଟିଭ ରହିଛି, ଗୋଟେ ଭାରି ଭାରି ଷ୍ଟ୍ରଙ୍ଗ କାରଣ ରହିଛି ତାଙ୍କ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ପ୍ରାଇଡକୁ ଆହୁରି ଅଧିକ ଗର୍ବିତ ଅନୁଭବ କରିବା। କିନ୍ତୁ ସାଧାରଣ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର କ'ଣ ଅଛି ସେଥିରେ ପ୍ରକୃତରେ? ତାପରେ ଆଉ ଗୋଟେ କଥା ସେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଯୋଉ ନ୍ୟାସନାଲ ପ୍ରାଇଡ ଗୋଟେ ଜାତୀୟ ଗର୍ବଟା ସବୁବେଳେ ତୁମ ଦେଶରେ ଅନେକ ଜିନିଷ ଥିଲେ ବି ତୁମେ ଯଦି ତାକୁ ପୃଥିବୀର ସର୍ବୋଚ୍ଚ ଦେଶମାନଙ୍କ ସାଙ୍ଗରେ କମ୍ପେୟାର କରିବ ତେଣୁ ନିଜ ଦେଶକୁ ନେଇକି ବେଶୀ ଗର୍ବ ଅନୁଭବ କରିହୁଏ ନା। ଯେମିତି ସେଣ୍ଟ୍ରାଲ ୟୁରୋପର ମଧ୍ୟବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ଦେଶମାନଙ୍କରେ। So, dear Dr. Fabrykant, can we speak of Czech Republic as a central European country? When you are talking about central European countries, which countries you have in mind?
Well, the RSSP has quite an extensive coverage of Central Europe. And yeah, the Czech Republic is one of these countries. And as regards national pride, I'll try to show you my screen. Yeah, Czech Republic is definitely there, and I'll just share my screen. I wanted to show it at the end some of my publications. So here, okay, you'll see it in a moment. It's a figure that that shows the about pride in social security system and pride in other what I call mass achievements here related to everyday life, and pride in what I call the elite achievements, yeah, like arts and sports. So here you see the most countries in the bottom are socialist countries, the Baltics are near the bottom. Here we have the Czech Republic. It's between Slovenia and Lithuania. So here we are.
Thank you. I'll just take 2 minutes to translate. So ଆମର ଭାଇ ଭଉଣୀ ମାନେ ଯେମିତି ଭାରି ସୁନ୍ଦର କଥାଟେ କହିଲେ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ଦେଶରେ ତାର ନିଜର ପରିସ୍ଥିତି ଭଲ ଥିଲେ ବି ଯଦି ସେ ଦେଶର ଲୋକମାନେ ଆଉ ଅଧିକ ବିକାଶଶୀଳ ଦେଶମାନଙ୍କ କଥା ସବୁବେଳେ ଭାବୁଥିବେ ଓ ଏଇ ଦେଶର ଲୋକମାନେ କେତେ ଭଲ ଅଛନ୍ତି, ତାଙ୍କର ଗଣତନ୍ତ୍ର କେତେ ଭଲ, ଅର୍ଥନୀତି କେତେ ଭଲ, ସାଂସ୍କୃତିକ ବିକାଶ କେତେ ଭଲ, ତେଣୁ ସେମାନେ ନିଜ ଦେଶକୁ ନେଇ ବେଶୀ ଗର୍ବିତ ଅନୁଭବ କରନ୍ତି। ଯୋଉ ଚେକ୍ ରିପବ୍ଲିକ କଥା କହିଲି ତାର ରାଜଧାନୀ ହେଉଛି ପ୍ରାଗ। ପ୍ରାଗ ଗୋଟେ ସବୁଠାରୁ ୟୁରୋପର ଗୋଟେ କେତେ ସୁନ୍ଦର ଦେଶ, ମାନେ ସୁନ୍ଦର ସହରଟିଏ, ସେଠିକି ମୁଁ ଯାଇଛି 2-3 ଥର। ଆଉ ଚେକ୍ ରିପବ୍ଲିକର ଲୋକମାନେ କାହିଁକି ସେ ଆମର सोवियत रूस आसिकी सेमान यूरोपियन यूनियन सहित मिसिबाकू चाहूचंती बा ऑलरेडी मिसी जाइचंती, तेणु सेमानकर फ्रेम ऑफ रेफरेंसटा सब बेले गोटे विकासशील देश संगे। तेणु ये भारी महत्वपूर्ण कथा आमर डॉक्टर फेब्रिकांत कहते जे आमर नेशनल प्राइड केवल आम भितर जहाँ अच्छी निर्भर करे ना, ये वर्तमान स्थिति उपर निर्भर करे ना, आमर अतीत अतीत कौन थिला, ये सेंट्रल यूरोपियन कंट्री जमती चेक रिपब्लिक 30 वर्ष आगु कम्युनिस्ट थिला एवं किसी सब दुख जंत्रणा भितर जाई पारि थांती। तो नेशनल प्राइडटा केवल वर्तमान को नहीं कि नुहे, अतीत और भविष्य को। So this is my translation. Now looking forward to be enriched by you about narration, Dr. Fabrykant.
Thank you. You see, I'm fascinated with languages. I've already learned 8 foreign languages, and I'm not going to stop here. And each time I hear a new language, I feel this urge to stop whatever I'm doing and learn. It's really quite well. Okay, so I think I'll manage to learn some more in the time I've got. So thank you. Yeah. So about narration. Yeah, as I told you, most of my research on national history narratives is on history textbooks. secondary and high school, also university textbook. And the reason is that, well, okay, well, those of us who are educators, well, we've only been to school at the very least, and some of us still remember the experience. Okay, yeah, we know that many students don't exactly learn everything you would like them to. And well, for some people, history is just a matter of names and dates. Personally, I've always loved history as a subject. But here we go. And still, nevertheless, textbooks, especially well, school textbooks, are the only texts containing some kind of history narrative to which every person in the country is exposed. Well, nearly everybody. Yeah, there are some exceptions. Yeah, some people who don't attend school, but yeah, it's by far the most widespread kind of popular history. So it's the most universal. And in the end, ultimately, when people forget all their names and dates, well, maybe not exactly all, but what is ultimately left is the story, the narrative, not the details, but the general structure. Maybe not even their ideology. Okay, there always is some kind of ideology. If the ideology can be explicit and people can agree or disagree, and ideology can be also implicit, and then people may uncover it and here again agree or disagree, or people may feel just that they are looking at the events under a certain angle. But what is usually not noticed at all, but something that has a profound impact, is this narrative structure, the form, or the way of telling a story. Like, is it a story of success? Yeah, is it a story of, well, this gradual success, like we've always been on the top? Think American exceptionalism, yeah, the US, the city upon the hill. On the other hand, their narrative that very widespread in, well, Eastern and Central Europe, the narrative of hardship, yeah, like usually there is this golden century, then there are some, well, dark years, some obstacles, and then we overcome these obstacles, and here we are heading to the glorious future. Then, yeah, there can be a story of major trials, like in the Serbian history narrative, the event that is probably the definitive part of the story is a huge defeat and the cost of a battle. So what I found as a result of my research is that you don't need a narrative of success and glory and all things great to unite the people and to create a strong sense of national identity. Sometimes it's easier to and more effective and more durable to create a strong sense of national identity around a more complicated story, a story of failures as well as of success, the story of trying times, and also the story that has some gaps in it, some uncertainty, some contested cultural heritage, like is this very prestigious national hero ours, or there is a neighboring country that claims this hero for its own. So what should we do? And also the important thing is whether it is a story of power and or whether it is a story of well, heroic defense. And all these versions may work. And as a sense, what matters is not their beautiful and super optimistic, glorious story. It is a story people can identify with. Sometimes it's easier to identify with persons who are not those larger-than-life heroes, but with people who did something, who struggled, and who are, well, like us, or whom we can imagine to, well, ourselves to be like. It's not those, beautiful, well, like West European medieval knights in shining armor, but different role models that can suit different people. Those who prefer scholarship to fight, or maybe vice versa, and those who share their own struggle. And before I end my presentation, I would strongly like to invite a discussion. I would like to share a personal story related to this research. Like when I was wrapping up the text of my PhD thesis, which is obviously a trying time, well, I had some well, events background back then, luckily it's all over now, that made it even more difficult. Well, basically I had not enough time and a lot of things to cope with, and I was really struggling. And then something happened by chance. I stumbled across a very thorough, and as far as I can tell, a very good retelling of one of the greatest, probably the greatest story I've ever come across, the Mahabharata. And I got really fascinated. I started reading, then I took another retelling, I can't read it in the original. I couldn't sleep at night because I felt for some characters so much. And then it sort of, sort of works out well with my PhD thesis. So it's really quite an important personal experience for me to, well, several years from those events, to be presenting my research at an event organized by colleagues from India, although I'm not physically in India now. I hope I can visit the country, and in the end, I'd like to share a picture from the campus of the Belarusian State University. I hope you can see it, can you? The unveiling of their monument to Mahatma Gandhi. We have this monument in well, opposite the entrance to the main building. So when the world goes back to normal in terms of travel and all, I'd like to invite you to come and visit and give a talk. And thanks for inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fabrykant. Fascinating. And concluding with Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Gandhi, and Mahabharata is very interesting. And maybe you can kindly speak just one line or a few lines about how Mahabharata became significant, what aspect of Mahabharata story narration becomes significant in your study of nation.
Yes, I'll try to keep it to a couple of words. When in a nutshell, it shows that contrary to what in sociology is called a belief in the just rules, well, the good guys and girls here do not necessarily get what they deserve from the very beginning. And you can be a nice person with various commitments that ultimately clash and fall on your head, like in the case of Karna, who is an absolutely fascinating character from a sociological point of view, psychological too, and but still, ultimately, if you if you persist, and if you get creative and mobilize your resources, ultimately you can get through. So, and basically it showed me that, well, there are worse things that not having not enough time for your PhD. So yeah, it just helped me to get me out of myself, to become more empathetic. It helps, believe me.
lovely,
Recompenses.
and so beautiful. In fact, thinking about Karna and identifying with Karna is so significant, because Karna was born into a marginalized space, but he moved along, and most of the time he embodied a life of empathy, a compassion. But there is another aspect to Karna, and some people from the textual sources make this comment. Maybe Karna was not that respectful to women, maybe. And so therefore, and that also brings the whole question of masculinity and dignity of women, and also in nationalist pride, because nationalism and masculinity have moved together in the modern world. Right from the French Revolution also. The French Revolution was a very masculine project, and violence and masculinity have come together. So would you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I've read these things, and actually, another thing that's quite fascinating about Mahabharata is that it has a lot of strong women characters. Yeah, these female characters are strong and fascinating in various ways. So yeah, I could some extent identify with quite a lot of them. And yes, gender and nation is a huge and I'd say still under research subjects in the contemporary nations and nationalism studies. And in my research on the representations of the First World War in textbooks, I found that during the First World War, yeah, a war in very masculine, pastime normally, and the men went to the battlefields, to the trenches, and a propaganda tool that was used to a large extent to stimulate national sentiment and national self-sacrifice in men was the depiction of a nation as a woman. And it worked both ways. Yeah, for example, the French depicted their country as a lovely, strong, courageous woman, Marianne. Yeah, but they were also the symbol that dates back to the French Revolution. And their opponents here, their German Empire, they depicted it as, an awful, absolutely awful, frightening woman with blood on her long nails. And they love to depict Germany as this beautiful, majestic, regal-looking woman, same as the British. And strategy works for both parties of the war. They all loved this activity. And the thing is that the actual women who were caught in the war, they weren't asked if they wish it or not. And their experiences were very much reduced to, waiting for their men to return, then mourning their men who did not return, but it's still, something marginal. Many national identity narratives is about this general image of a nation as a woman that marginalizes, and it's in many ways opposed to the actual woman. I do not remember the countries that were positively embodied as a male figure. So the nation is usually as she, and men serve the nation, but it's the men who decide in which way to serve their nation. So here we are.
Thank you. And one related small clarification is that given the importance of narration, like in textbooks, in Russian textbooks, now what kind of picture of women, are women characters, women, you know, uh, what can be called as exemplary women persons, are they taught? And given the great significance of literature, especially in Russia, that is classical literature like Leo Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, and they have some women characters, and which maybe can constitute a very interesting kind of imagination. And I wonder whether these kind of strong or at least courageous women characters in classic novels, whether they have a role in thinking about nation, which is much more inclusive of women.
Oh yes, absolutely. In the classical Russian literature of the 19th century, which I love rereading, by the way, there is a pervasive motif with regard to women, and this motif is of the Russian 19th century aristocracy was mostly brought up in close touch with the Western European culture, especially the Francophone culture, than its own. And this motif is that for whatever reason that defies imagination, is that these women that are positioned as role models, as very positive characters, they still are part of the people. One moment is in the War and Peace, yes, as I mentioned, obviously Tolstoy, is this moment where one of the main female characters, the lovely Natasha Rostova, in the village, joins the folk dance. And the question that the third person narrator asks is something like, how on earth could this little countess who was trained to ballroom dancing, how could she just fit very well into these folk dance, this Russian folk dancing that is quite different from waltz or mazurka or what's not. So it is one thing. And another thing is, probably my favorite female role model in the Russian literature is the main female character of Pushkin's Eugene Onegin, Tatiana Larina, who, as the author remarks, could not write in Russian very well, so even her love letter she writes in French, but still she was Russian at heart. It's a quotation, yeah, and she loved the Russian winter and some other things, and ultimately Tatiana Lorina, who becomes the devoted wife of an army general, a war hero, which is important. Yes, she hugely respects and is the perfect wife to this person who gave his health to the service of his country. She rejects the person whom she loves, and she loves her because of this duty of her integrity. So ultimately, in the Russian literature, for women, patriotism is a duty, and it's something that should not be trained or cultivated. It's still there. It's not normatively implanted. It's something very deep inside.
Thank you, Dr. Fabrykant, so fascinating. And it shows us not only you have learned many languages, but your journey is so multidimensional: sociology, literature, and of course, one would, through the conversation, get also the philosophical dimension. For example, very quickly, some of the philosophers of nationalism in the Russian world, because we do not hear so much about them in mainstream intellectual discourse. Would you have some thought about, the philosophical dimension of nationalism in the Russia and Russian speaking world? In what way the philosophers have spoken about it?
Well, I'll be very brief because, I had some training in philosophy, and what is training taught me, among other things, is that it is a very specialized field. So I won't delve deeply because I'm not an expert here. What I can see in this regard is that it's, by the historians of the Russian philosophy, it is considered one of the distinct features of Russian philosophy that it very much deals, obviously besides the usual questions of ontology and epistemology and ethics and whatnot, it very large extent deals with the questions of the Russian nation, what it means to be Russian, of what Russia is, or what its mission or its purpose, depends on a philosopher, is, and only their Russianness, how it should be defined, and what's the meaning of it. Yeah, philosophers are fond of asking questions about meaning. So, only yes, and nowadays, I'd say it's become very much an issue of not just Russian philosophy, general philosophy of history, like where the meaning of the variety of ways of being a nation, and where we're all heading to, and the issue of rationalism versus rationalism or some mysticism that was the mainstream in the Russian philosophical thought of the 19th century. I'd say it's becoming more mainstream in other countries. So in a way, it's closer to Russian philosophy now.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fabrykant. Now we will continue our conversations. I invite my and our dear friend Nina to kindly join the conversation. Nina, please.
Yes, thank you so much, Ananta, my beloved eternal friend. And thank you, everybody.
Namaste.
Namaste. I'm really happy to feel all of you. And I would love to tell you a very simple and astonishing thing, because I do not belong to any special nation. I belong to one nation, humanity, because I really feel that we are all one. And my love story, my story in for my journey is very happy, because I was lucky to quit all the jobs, all the boxes, 10 years before my stewardship, as I say. And I was happy, and I'm happy now, especially to take part in creating an incredibly new world. Even at that time, in 1991, when I was awakened, I suddenly realized that we are to create conditions for the world to awaken, to really become one, to put off all the borders, and we did it directly, literally, because for 10 years I have been wandering all over Russia for more than 100 trips in 25 cities and special places for the future, like Altai, Baikal, Ural Mountains. And these were the places of our gatherings for us to awaken to who we really are. And we are citizens of the world, not only one nation. Though, of course, yes, I'm happy that I was born in Russia, because we had lots of obstacles, and it's a good opportunity to grow, to realize that everything is for better, for our growth. This I know for sure. And when Ananta, my good friend, when he asked me to speak about some national sentiments and the possibility for global and cosmic transformations. I really love this topic. I mean, the second part of it, the opportunity coming from Russia to entire world, because Russia is a part of the whole world, for global and cosmic transformation. I am used to quote the Professor Edgar Casey. He spoke that hope to the world will come from Russia. What does he mean? What do I mean when I say that I'm happy to be born in Russia? I mean that for many, many centuries and time slots, we experienced the community sense, the community feelings, the community way of life, when we take care of each other, when we think, first of all, not about ourselves, but about the use to the society, to the world, to community. And this is a wonderful prologue. It was a kind of prologue to the things that happen now. And as for this thing that we experience for the second year already, as I say, pantomime, pandemia, pantomime, this pantomime is for a great big lesson, not even lesson, but a huge opportunity for us to really awaken, to wake up, for all humanity to awaken, because you know better than me, we all know, we live in one and on the same small planet, that all the countries were locked, but it means that all the countries should wake up and we should realize what kind of a world, what kind of society we would love to create. And after traveling all over the world for 20 years, I felt all people as one, without any color of skin and nation. We really are one. And at the same time, when I came back to my Siberia in 2009, I suddenly found out a great treasure inside my Siberia. I found the newly born model of new life manifested, materialized, not only in our dreams, but for 30 years now, yes, this community, they consist of more than 5,000 people from all over the world, without any um, nations, but one nation. They create this one nation, though all of them speak Russian. Learn to speak Russian. It doesn't matter for me. You know the prophecy that all the knowledge will fade, the languages will be finished, but love will exist forever. And you know that love is the true language when we have some profound experiences in our life. That's why I hope that this is time in silence, maybe in masks, maybe without masks, we should deeply reflect on who we are and what can be done. So that's why I invite all of you on the day out of time, on the 25th of July. It will be the second gathering online for the first time in my life. Usually I have been doing it in live events, but this time we have to do it. But I express my gratitude to pantomime, to this pandemic, because it united all of us, and a great awakening process is happening. So you are welcome to be a part of this wonderful opportunity to go through, to go out of the cycle of old life, old beliefs, old ways of thinking, to new horizons, as Marharyta said about new horizons of thinking by Sri Aurobindo and other wonderful philosophers. As for me, I highly appreciate Vladimir Vernadsky, the Russian scientist, who spoke about noosphere as one collective consciousness. And even at that time, he envisioned that we should realize that the entire earth is covered by one collective consciousness and we are to consciously take part in it. And that's why the Foundation for the Law of Time will be the key organizer together with us on the Day Out of Time. And she, Stephanie South, she will explain the miracle of coming out of the closed circle of life into the cycle of next evolutionary level. So, so I am really happy that I do not belong to any nation, to any job, to any profession. Though my beloved, not profession but activity, has been for many years creating all kinds of scripts, performances about meaning of life, sense of life. But then when I met Talgat Akbashев, by the way, he is not Russian, he is Tatar, I realized that there is paradise, and this paradise lives inside us, in our relationships. So we can even invent altogether. I felt all of you just listing the names of people present here. Thank you so much for accepting me with my not perfect English because I'm Russian. But we can really initiate the School for Planetary Consciousness because we should change, we should allow, we should love all the people. We are not to fight with anybody because it's just mean, it just has no use at all. Any fight, any struggle, any conflict, any competition, it simply brings the energy to the old, that very cycle. And I know that when we have this high radiance and high vision and we create unity and we act together, then we really take part in this legendary transition. I don't want to take much time because there are many people here. I love all of you. I feel all of you as one, as myself, because we are cells of one whole humanity. And Ananta Giri, when I met him in Astana 10 years ago, I felt him as pure love. We called him pure love, and he is pure love manifested in actions. Thank you so much. I think that I should give opportunity for others, for other people to talk and invite you. Ananta will have the link and invitation for the Day Out of Time. I really invite you to this miracle. It's out of money. I live out of money, out of fear, out of time. And I think that this is the future because if we are one family, how can we count, calculate, just and all these old things. So thank you so much.
Asiba. And
Пожалуйста.
Спасибо.
and and uh, and being with the presence of Nina and Marhita, so we can always
Yes,
be
Marharyta. Do you speak Russian, of course? Маргарита, ты...
Absolutely, yeah.
Да, я хочу сказать, как мой сын сегодня принял участие. Я одну фразу скажу по-русски, а потом переведу. У меня сын историк, и я говорю: Артем, вот так и так, вот что бы ты сказал про национальную, у нас там в России, как достижение. Он говорит: мама, есть такая поговорка: Россия тем господствует над миром, что защищает мир от всех господ. И I'm happy to tell that really Russia dominates the world by protecting the world from all dominators, because we should be one. We should be tenderly treated by each other. We should create these harmonious relationships and not controlling, manipulating. But we should not fight with them. We should love them because they are not aware that, of the fact that they are manipulated. They are conditioned. That's why let us spread this high energy and they will be transformed. You know this story about the 100 monkey phenomena, yes? Про это эффект сотой обезьяны. When we create the critical mass on the planet Earth of awakened conscious creators, then suddenly there will be this jump, quantum jump. I feel it very much. Let us do it all together. Thank you, Marharyta. I was happy to hear your wonderful vision and your great English talk and your heart. Thank you. And thank everybody.
Lovely. And the presence of Marita and Nina suggests that nationalism can go into a much more cosmopolitan direction. So with this, I now request Professor Meera Chakrabarty to kindly enrich us. In the meantime, I request those friends who would like to ask a question, please indicate in the chat box. And then we will call. I also request Randhir to kindly take a note of questions
Yes.
coming from the chat box. So now, Professor Meera Chakrabarty, please.
Hello, Ananta. How are you?
Very clear.
Thank you so
Can
much.
you hear? Can you hear?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Okay, Nina.
Thank you. I felt
Randhir,
your
आप तो poet बन गए हैं, कवि बन गए हैं.
Shukriya. Thank you.
Marharyta, I have two dimensions to see this national identity. One is that there is a danger of institutionalizing the the national pride or national history, and that's quite dangerous. The other one is that if we have a detachment, a little detachment, then it is better. It will be better to see the national history in perspective. So these two are these two can be balanced very well, where it need not be institutionalized, because in many countries, like in East Germany, after it became one with the West, merged with the West, it didn't have its own nationalism, national identity. So then we have this cultural identities and other identities where it becomes quite dangerous when, we have the football session going on, and people have been at loggerhead with each other, to say that this is my country, this is my coach. So all this is contributing quite dangerously to institutionalization of the thing. So how do you deal with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. When you listen to me, I listen to your heart. I really felt that you absorb the not information, but the energy, and have your own deep things to share. Yes, I think that the past, present, and future, it lives in one point. And of course, we should learn the lessons from the past. And at the same time, in my deep mothers and women's opinion, I know that we lived in a, so to speak, unconscious society, in barbaric society, conflicts, wars, fight, competitions, everything is not human. It's not for humans. It's just for those who should feel that they are better than some other human. That's why now we have this very, very profound period of time for transformation, for coming into really human society. For this, we have two opportunities, I think. One is create alternative way of life and outlook, and everything is here already on the earth, though it is not visible, but it is becoming visible. And the other is to make the transformation of entire society by changing consciousness and uh, by transforming the inequalities. There should not be any feelings of fear, anger, jealousy, and all the old things, because they put us down. And it's a huge inner work, and we can do it. there are some pedagogical, very simple technologies, educational ones, that very quickly bring people to our true selves. I'm not sure that I was so precise in understanding your English questions. I'm very sorry, maybe it was not so clear for me, but I guessed the main meaning, and I feel your soul, your radiant soul, your wonderful smile. You're welcome to join us, and let us not part. And you will see the wonder of this planetary unity and planetary creativity. And we are
Yeah,
together.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. To Marharyta, I said.
Okay, so thank you. You really asked a crucial question, which is a huge dilemma discussed by people with there are different attitudes towards nations and nationalism in general. The question is how we can integrate first the reality of living in the world of nation as it is. Second, their need for critical thinking, as you said, for critical distancing from whatever stories they tell and whatever institutions they come to organize themselves into. And third, our own individual experiences, our own needs to be respected by others, to have positive self-esteem with some grounds to read, to have a stable understanding of the meaning of life and our place in the world. And when these three issues clash, it's very dangerous, yes, as you said. So it's not enough just to say that, okay, we should treat it with caution because the question is how, exactly. And it's quite unrealistic to expect that these matters are going to solve themselves because, well, they never do and they haven't yet. It's important to have a kind of identity that first allows multiple stories and not one single story that is crammed down everyone's throats. And second, to have a participatory storytelling, to have people having not just their own say, but a chance of living through these stories. And that, as I said, we need to have these role models, and in particular, we need role models for critical thinking. And by critical thinking, I mean not just espousing some kind of ideas that are supposed to be critical, well, in sociology, some branches of philosophy, but to be critical on a systematical basis, towards all kinds of stories, and to show which things work, and to be able to recreate it for ourselves. And that is why we need research. That is why we need knowledge, because where we have only stories without an empirical foundation, it's very easy, very tempting to reject it outright. Some parts of it may be true. So it's important to know which parts are true and to rely on these parts.
Thank you, Marharyta. Now we are slowly moving towards our concluding moments. Now I request Minati to present her poem. After Minati, I request Randhir. Minati, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Good evening, everyone.
But
Actually,
we cannot see you. Please put your video so that Marita can see you and write you a poem.
Yes.
Yeah, poem is there. I cannot call it a poem. Okay, let us see. So my question is to Dr. Fabrykant. Like when she was doing the research or questioning people, so what was the particular field people felt more, people were feeling emotional, that's what she said. and what were the particular thing they were more proud of, and why. And second thing is, I wanted to know that whether any challenging side is there to the national pride. Like now, when you say, we say that I wish I would not be, we will not be part of this nation because we are suffering, or because something wrong, or because something wrong with the people's mindset. So these two questions I would like to ask her. Then later I can present that poetry that is related to actually India's national pride, and it is mostly contradictory.
But you can also present your poem, then she can answer. Yeah.
Okay, so it is actually opposite to national pride. I should have titled it National Shame. So it goes like this. The title is National Pride, the largest democracy in the longest constitution. But citizens' rights are confined to the pages only. No true freedom of speech, food, attire, or religion. Yet, our patriotism is questioned continuously, and your pride dies slowly. National animals can be counted on finger. Who will protect when the savior turns poacher? Multilingualism is in our favor, but don't we fight over the language we prefer and who should get the water? Shakti, the female power we revere, but every day baby girls are dumped in garbage or thrown into the river. Our worshipping Lakshmi and Saraswati is meaningless if it cannot stop the little girls from begging and they don't enter the classroom door. Why this irony? National pride has turned into shame in the socio-political game. From the destruction graveyard to find a name, yes, it's a pride that history says we never invaded other in past days. So let's make a new resolve to embrace humanity and peace and regain our long lost fame. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Marharyta, please.
First of all, thank you. A wonderful poem, very much to the point. And yes, national shame is a shadow of national pride, and it's something more than just the lack of or the very low level of national pride, because what unites national pride and national shame is that they are both opposed to indifference. Yeah, it's one thing that you look at some country, it's not perfect. Yeah, okay, I see something is wrong. Well, the world is an imperfect place to be. It's another thing when you acutely feel the things you dislike in your country. And the reason here they go side by side, one of the reasons is that when there is this institutionalized attempt to instill the feeling of national pride, like we are the great country, one of the things it does is that it raises the level of expectations. So the facts that are sure that the country is imperfect, they cause more shame than they would do well if we just leave the end, realize yes, it's an imperfect world. Yes, when this national identity issue comes to the forefront in the public discourse, it's a double-edged sword. Yeah, the chances are it can lead to high national pride, or it can lead to high national shame. And also, their population is always heterogeneous, is diverse. So some people like something, some there's other people don't like, and some yet other people don't care about, and yet other people don't know the reason, although they probably would have cared about had they known. Is there. And in reply to your first question, what makes people feel more emotional in terms of national pride? Well, their general national pride, country in general, is more emotionally charged, yeah, and it's more normative. And also, of all these facets of pride-specific achievements, it's pride in history, because we tend to feel quite protective, yeah, as regards our country, because, well, like whether we like it or not, it's a part of us. There are some parts we don't like about ourselves, something that we work on, but we don't like to be ridiculed for by outsiders, yeah, by strangers. So that's a thing that makes people feel emotional about national pride when being confronted with people from other countries.
Thank you. Now, Randhir, please.
Thank you so much. And first of all, we are so grateful for the excellent presentation, thoughtful presentation by Dr. Marharyta Fabrykant. And indeed, this is one of the excellent presentation, I would say, in our Swadhyaya Sahachkara. My question is related to, nations. When we think about nations, nations like individuals, have such a thing as a character. And the world is home to several types of national characters. There are instances where the difference in national character is drastic, almost antithetical. But in other instances, the difference in national character is relatively minor. So how is a nation's character formed? Is it linked to the history of its civilization, the race and religion of its dominant population or majority population, its geographical features, its intellectual and scientific achievements, its economic system, its arts, or its culture? Does national character determine a nation's culture, political, and economic? Or is it the other way around? Can a nation's character be transformed or subverted? Or does it last till the nation is in existence? So this is my brief concern. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's probably the question cross-cultural research is struggling with right now. It has been doing so for several decades. So yeah, there is no definitive answer. There are several schools of thought here. There is a theory with quite solid empirical justification that it's the economy that pushes, say, values here to more modern, basically values of more self-expression and safety here, the late Ronald Inglehart theory. There is the idea that certain characteristics here of nations, mindsets, attitudes affect the economy, like the horizon of planning. Recently, there's been a huge change of opinion around the very famous institutionalist economist Darren Acemoglu of the MIT, who is a major proponent of the idea that institutions define the everyday life, the economy, like how things are organized. Even he recently in a new preprint was forced to accept that, well, culture matters, yeah. Not just institutions, as his earlier version, yes, so culture may exercise an influence on their economy, and sometimes it is very contingent factor. So basically their causation can run in all kinds of ways. For example, I love their correlation that may or may not be causal. That there's been a publication in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology, I think, several years ago, showing that a country's economic affluence is positively related to how well its secondary high school students perform in mathematics. Since I teach statistical analysis, I love telling it to my students, so please learn math. You can contribute to a country's well-being. Seriously, yeah, it can run many ways, and the climate hypothesis resurfaced some years ago with a new vigor. So basically, yeah, it was love to know. Maybe in a couple of centuries we will know.
So thank you, Marharyta. And Randhir, I think we are slowly on the way towards our concluding moments. So let us invite Dr.
Devendra.
And to please share his thought and offer a vote of thanks. Before that, I saw Mary, Mary Butel, Mary Angelica Butel. Are you there? If you like to share some thoughts, very briefly, we invite you. Mary Angelica. Okay, if she's taking time to come, then let us go to Dr. Tiwari, please. Dr. Tiwari. Dr. Tiwari?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
Yes.
you are audible.
But
Thank you very much.
we cannot hear your songs.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, I don't have a song today. I was hearing today's dialogue. It was very heart-touching, and variety of aspects related to nationalism, national prejudice, national pride was discussed. And at this juncture, I am reminded of one essay by Oliver Goldsmith, a British essayist, novelist, and playwright. And in his essay entitled On National Prejudices, and to share my opinion in the light of that essay on national prejudices, I'm reminded of the statement by Miss Nina ma'am. She said, "I'm of no nation. I am a cosmopolitan." So in the essay on national prejudices, Oliver Goldsmith highlights so many prides and prejudices among national citizens of many countries, and he presents his experience while he was traveling in his country in a train, and by chance in the compartment where he was sitting, he happened to hear a gossip among some players who were from different countries. They were proud of their country. They were talking so many good things about their country, but at the same time they were criticizing others. Particularly those players were from Britain, and they were criticizing Germans, they were criticizing Russians, they were criticizing Spanish people. So in the concluding section of the same essay, Oliver Goldsmith says, if we try to look in our habits, culture, and practices, we are good at some practices. At the same time, we are also having some taboos, some bad practices. So we should not have such kind of thought that we are good, we are better, and others are not good. We should have a sense of equality. We should have a sense of similarity. So as whole, I would like to say that definitely nationalism, national prejudice, national pride is okay, but as whole, we all are human beings living on a same planet. So for a balance in society, for a balance on the earth, it is necessary that we all are required to be human. We should care for everybody. We should care for environment. We should care for the well-being of all the citizens of the world. So I'm reminded of the line from Veda, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Entire world is a home, and we all are living on in that home. So this has been my submission, and should I go ahead for expressing my vote of thanks?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So thank you, Professor Giri sir, for giving me this opportunity. And as sir has introduced me, that I'm Dr. Devendra, and I'm a faculty in School of Humanities at Raffles University, Neemrana. And it's my honor and privilege to extend this vote of thanks on this August moment. I would like to thank Professor Randhir Gautam, Head School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Raffles University, the convener of this dialogue, and Professor Ananta Giri sir, who is a professor at Madras Institute of Development Studies, and also the moderator of today's session, for giving me this opportunity to extend my vote of thanks. On behalf of School of Humanities and Social Sciences, Raffles University, Neemrana, Rajasthan, India, and Vishwaneedam Center for Asian Blossoming, I would like to thank our chief guest and speaker of today's dialogue, Dr. Marharyta Fabrykant, a leading research fellow at HSE University, Russia, and associate professor at Belarusian State University, Belarus, who graced us with her benign presence and her deep insight on the topic national prejudice in cross-cultural perspective, factors, regions, and stories. Ma'am, thank you once again. We are grateful to our chief patron, revered Dr. Justice Meena Gombar, ma'am, for being the source of inspiration and motivation for our organizing such kind of activities. I also extend my vote of thanks to Professor Diwakar Goli, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Raffles University. I extend my vote of thanks to active participants, guests, audience, and everybody who contributed in making this program materialize. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the convener of this event, Professor Randhir Gautam, and moderator, Professor Ananta Giri sir, for initiation and execution of such a wonderful dialogue. Thank all of you from bottom of my heart. Finally, thanks a lot once again to everybody. I wish you all a very happy time. Goodbye. Thank you.
Now, we can conclude with this poem from Tagore. Dr. Fabrykant, you might have heard about Rabindranath Tagore from India.
Obviously, and you read some of his poems.
And so that is so inspiring. You are a lover of poems, among others. So you mentioned about critical thinking and how important critical and creative thinking has been a very important contribution to re-embody nationalism. And Tagore was a great critic of nationalism. And in Gitanjali, his concluding lines are, I'm remembering a few of them, goes like this. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where reason has not lost its way in the dreary desert of dead habits, where the world is not broken into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Into that heaven of freedom, O Father, and we can add now, O Mother, let my countrymen, and we can add women and children awake. And thinking about critical thought, we can also bring Habermas here, and how the whole sense of critique is accompanied by creativity and emancipation. And no wonder Habermas is talking about post-national constellation. So both critical thought, philosophy, and literature is a contribution to re-embodying the sense of national pride in the direction of not only the achievement of our nations, but what the great philosopher Fred Dalmayer, he talks about achieving our world. And to this, we can add, given the fragility of our nature, another thing, the nature and nation. Because once river dry up, when our climate is frozen, where is nation? So it is not only, that the whole sense of, the transnational, but it is moving towards a sense of cosmic achievement. So the wind and the water, and maybe nationalism emerged at the phase of industrial revolution. But with the crisis of the climate, and as we are entering a new phase of civilization, we can think of a much more grounded nationalism in the sense of attuned to the rhythm of the soul and the soil, and much more cosmic nationalism via varieties of intermediary thoughts and practices. Again, it was a joy to be part of this conversation, and we invite Dr. Fabrykant to join us at your convenience, a little later to our dialogue. So,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Fabrykant. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Say bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye. Paka.